mankind ventured out into space, we never suspected what was to come. Our first inhabited planet was less than 30 light years away, far closer than we would have thought. The issue? Everyone was dead. The entire planet was like that, a perfectly stable world with no issues that we could determine, and yet it seemed the suicide rates were the greatest cause of death among the people. We don't know why, but they apparently had been doing this for some time. Years of study later showed that the reptile-like race had taken nearly 10 times as long as we did to reach the industrial age, and had not gotten very far beyond that. Time went on, and we soon discovered that this was not an isolated occurrence. Species after species had killed each other and themselves off for one reason or another. Some had died off so early, only a few stone monuments marked that they had ever been there. Some had established empires spanning nearly a dozen systems, but always, they were all dead, down to the last child. And so we traveled the stars, colonizing the lost homeworlds we found, along with others. We studied the creatures on many worlds, although none bore intelligent life. In time, we studied the technology of the more advanced dead races, gleaming a scientific secret or two. It was rather amusing to see the scientific community collectively slap their heads when they saw the simple ideas and concepts they had missed. Once, and just once, we found a sentient race still alive. A planet with 3/4 the gravity of Earth, a planet primarily dominated by jungles, bore a race of insect-like scavengers. They were barely beyond the Stone Age, farming and agriculture still in its early days. We considered making contact, but in the end decided against it. They were a very violent race, and many would kill one another for the smallest detail. Suicide also seemed to be something they would resort to with little or no good reason. In fact, the entire race seemed insane. Long-term observation showed that after hatching, the individual would slowly but surely go insane, to the point where none reached old age. The only reason this race had not yet gone extinct was a combination of high birth rates, short lifespans, and a child being able to defend itself hours after birth. In any other race, this bizarre affliction can and did drive them to extinction. For nearly 700 years, mankind grew and expanded. We did not find another living race during that time, or find out how we were immune. Many came up with theories, but none fit better than any others. Ethnic, religious, and cultural differences became less important when you were away from Earth, and in the end, those who could not agree simply lived on different worlds. The UTA, United Terran Alliance, controlled over 87% of mankind's colonies from its seat of power on Earth. A few rogue factions cropped up. Piracy and smuggling saw a rebirth in this new space age, and mankind went on as it always had. Then a moment that would change our history came. The UTA Dreadnought Supremacy was in essence a city in space, constructed with our most advanced technology to the point where systems were updated during construction, and having a length of nearly 7 miles, it was the mightiest ship we had ever created. The Supremacy was sent to investigate a new world our long-range sensors showed had space-age technology upon it. It was farther out than we had ever traveled before, but not by much. It was assumed that this would be just another dead world, that we might find some usable raw materials pre-harvested in the form of abandoned constructions in orbit. What we found was an outpost of a spacefaring race, its people still alive and well. Dozens of ships were in orbit around a rocky, empty world, along with a space dock to repair and refuel them. They were remarkably primitive compared to our own, and much smaller. The largest was perhaps the length of a football field, if that. From the scarring and damage, along with the derelict ship floating nearby of a different make, they had been fighting not too long ago. Our first contact did not go so well, however. We would later piece together what happened, and it went something like this. As soon as what might have at the time been the largest spaceship in the galaxy appeared on top of them, the race known as the Condor were sent to the edge of panic. The commander tried to keep a disaster from occurring and ordered his ships not to open fire. Communications on both sides failed. We ourselves had long ago stopped carrying any equipment or training our crew for first encounters, and apparently the Condor had not had any first contacts of their own in hundreds of years. It also didn't help that our subspace communications were just advanced enough that the garbled words the poor Condor picked up on their outdated systems sounded horribly sinister and alien, even by the wide standards of the galaxy as it now was. One of the Condor gunmen on the closest ship had a panic attack after hearing our garbled transmission. He fired upon the Supremacy, which in a placating gesture had lowered its shields. The shot was able to breach the hull at a single point and cost the lives of 3 crewmen. The captain of Supremacy ordered the shields raised and a warning shot fired. Unluckily for the Condor, the concept of warning shots was alien to them, and they did not stop to ask why the single shot had missed. It was a short fight. The Supremacy blew away a single craft to secure its escape, a sad but necessary tactic. This only hurt our reputation further with what happened later. As we soon discovered, nearly 3% of the galaxy was part of what was known as the Veil of Madness. Any race within this sector of space would slowly but surely go insane. Short jaunts were safe enough, but more than that, and permanent damage to the mind would result. We had apparently been sitting in the galactic equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle, and had finally breached its edge. When the Condor realized that both our entrance and escape vectors lead directly into the Veil, a panic started. With surprising speed, news spread among their people, and among others, of what had happened. The story grew worse with each retelling, especially once it left official military reports. Tales of the titanic black ship that came from beyond the Veil sent out signals in a horrid dark language, obliterated dozens of the Condor's finest warships in seconds for no reason, and then vanished like a ghost, soon spread everywhere. Humanity had become the bogeyman of the universe. Raids from pirate groups further cemented our dark reputation, and in time, we came to work with the role. Every attempt to convince people that we wanted fair negations was seen as a deception. Rather than fight a losing battle, we played to the role given to us. Soon we were seen as wicked but not unreasonable, and gained both fear and respect throughout the galaxy. Few humans appeared in view of aliens outside of deliberately frightening power armor, and human ambassadors used voice synthesizers to sound like that first garbled communication had. Looking back, it's actually worked out in our favor. After years of contact, most alien races know almost nothing about humans other than exaggerated horror stories. They rarely bother us, and the ones that do never return home. The only bit of info we were more than happy to share with them was the reason we can live in the Veil. Turns out, we were all a little crazy to start with. I think the fact that we're pulling the largest practical joke in the galaxy was already proof enough of that. Anna Petrova. Subject, Bree. Please read this. Bree, don't delete this. I know you hate me, but we were best friends once, and I need you to read this. I think I'm in serious trouble, and there's nothing you can do, but I need you to read this so that you understand. I know we haven't talked since sectionals. It's been forever, but what happened to you wasn't my fault. At least it wasn't entirely my fault. I know everyone thinks it was, but I would never do anything to hurt you. This is going to sound crazy, but I need to tell you so that someone knows. It started when we were in the 8th grade. It was the night before the Crystal Classic competition. I was at home and couldn't sleep because I was so nervous about competing. Well, I got on the computer, just sort of surfing the web and stuff, but I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was just sitting there, so I Googled myself. I never should have done that, Bree. At first, it was just all the usual stuff you find when you Google yourself. Then, I found a link to a Wikipedia page about me. I thought our club or my dad made it or something. There wasn't much there, just some basic facts about skating and what city I lived in. But the thing that got me was that it said I had won that year's Crystal Classic. I laughed. I thought for sure someone had only made it to encourage me. I confronted my dad about it, but he denied it. When I won the competition the next day, I was so happy. That was the first competition I had ever won, and it felt so good. Remember how hard I worked after that? That was when my parents hired Sergey to coach me. You know how much that must have cost. After that, I would check my page before every competition, and it would always say where I placed. It said I would win the regionals at 15, and that came true. Afterwards, Sergey convinced my mom and dad that I had a real shot at the Olympics. That was when they pulled me from school. I skated every day, but I just wasn't progressing the way Sergey said I needed to if I wanted a shot at the championship. I was working so hard and skating well, but still Sergey said it wasn't good enough. When the sectionals came, all I could think about was winning, so I did something I shouldn't have. Everyone was saying that you were the favorite, and I felt like I had already lost the competition. So I made a Wikipedia account and tried to update my page to say that I was the winner. The thing is that after I tried to update the page, I checked it, and all it said was, Annora Petrova is a selfish little bitch who is going to get what she deserves. I broke down. That's why I looked so awful the next day. I was in a daze. I remember watching your routine and seeing your blade snap. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground and my face was covered in blood from where the tip flew off and sliced my forehead. Then they told me it was my fault because I had your skates in my possession earlier. Bree, I honestly didn't do anything to your skates. I wanted to win, but I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. When they told me I was banned from any further competitions, everyone said that I got what I deserved. Nobody even asked for my side of the story. I guess you heard that Sergey dropped me after that too. He said that I ruined him. No one would talk to me. Do you know what it's like to be ostracized by everyone? I couldn't even get ice time, and then the page got worse. Anytime I'd check it, it would say all these horrible things about me. I can't even tell you half of them, the language was so vile. I'd cry every time I read it, but I couldn't stop checking it. I knew I had to do something, so I made a complaint to Wikipedia. I even tried calling them, but no one there claimed to know anything about the page. I was home alone that Friday night when I decided to check it to see if it had been taken down. The page was still there, only this time it said, Annora Petrova is a pathetic little orphan. I freaked. I kept calling my parents to warn them, but every time I did, all I would hear was this horrible laughter on the other end. I must have called them 100 times until I couldn't take the sound of the laughing anymore. After the accident, the police gave me their phones, and there wasn't any record of my calls that night. I was devastated. Before that, I was so busy training all day and doing homeschool, I never realized just how alone I had been the whole time. I know you tried to reach out, but I was so depressed and angry that I just shut everything out. Once I turned 18 and got the settlement money from the court, I came to Switzerland. I got to reinvent myself. My skating really took off. It hasn't even been a year, and I still feel like everything that happened was so long ago. That's why I shouldn't have done it, Bree. I'm writing you now from an old hotel outside of Prague. I'm auditioning for the ice circus tomorrow. I know it's the kind of thing we used to make fun of, but I really want this. I was feeling really nervous, so out of an old habit, I checked my page. It's so hard to say this, but when I read it to see if I'd get the job tomorrow, all it said was, Annora Petrova died friendless and alone, and it has today's date listed as the date of my death. I'm sobbing so hard, I can barely type this, but I wanted you to know the truth. Please believe me, Bree. I attached a screenshot of the page. It's all there, just as I told you. I don't know what to do. I don't know anyone here and nobody speaks English. I keep refreshing the page. God, it's been forever. I keep refreshing, but it still hasn't changed. I'm waiting for midnight. I don't know what to do, so I locked myself in my room. There's only a few minutes to midnight now. All I can do is refresh the page. I'm exhausted, but I can't stop. I'm afraid to leave the computer until I know what happens next. The strangest security tape I've ever seen. I work at a gas station in rural Pennsylvania. It's a boring job, but it's pretty easy and it pays all right. A few weeks ago, this new guy started. I'll call him Jeremy. Jeremy is weird. He's about 25 or 26 and he hardly speaks, but he's got the creepiest laugh I've ever heard. My boss and I have both noticed this, but it's never been a problem, so there's not much we can do about it. Customers have never complained about him, and he's always done his job fairly well. Up until a few weeks ago anyway, that's when things started going missing. Employee theft can be a problem at any business that sells consumer goods, and there's only one person working at a time at this gas station. It's a pretty small place. About 2 weeks ago, my boss started noticing that we were short on motor oil. At first, it was a few containers at a time, then entire shelves and boxes from the back room. Pretty soon, entire shipments would be gone the day after we got them, and it would always be right after Jeremy's shifts. My boss has checked the security camera tapes from every single night he worked, but he could never catch him in the act. Jeremy would lock up at closing, then the motor oil would be gone the next day. My boss usually takes the tapes home with him to try and catch Jeremy stealing, but his daughter had a softball game last night, so he asked me to watch the tape for him. He offered to pay me overtime under the table, so obviously I took that offer. There are 3 cameras, so he gave me 3 different tapes to check. I figured it would be a long night, but I'm trying to save up for vacation, so I really needed the money. I took the tapes home, popped them in an old VCR, and sat back. 2 days ago, the last time he worked, Jeremy started at 4 p.m. Everything seemed pretty normal at first. He counted up his drawer, switched off with the girl who was working before him, and waited for a customer. The first person who came in was Mrs. Templeton. The timestamp on the video read 4:03, a regular. She picked up her cigarettes and a newspaper and paid with a 20. Nothing unusual there. The next customer was some local guy named Ron. He drives a motorcycle, usually comes in every few days. He filled up his tank, got a bag of beef jerky, paid with his credit card, and then left. Next was some guy with a cowboy hat. I'd never seen him before, but we get plenty of strangers passing through, just like at any gas station. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel, paid with a $100 bill, and went on his way. I sat back and sighed. The only thing more boring than doing this job is watching someone else do it. My boss's offer was enough to keep me watching though, so I left the tape on. Everything seemed pretty normal. I had a feeling that if Jeremy was stealing motor oil, he knew we were suspicious of him by now. I didn't expect him to be dumb enough to let us catch him on camera. Things stayed boring and routine until about 5 o'clock. At 5:03, Mrs. Templeton came back in. She must have forgotten something, but she didn't. She bought the same pack of cigarettes as before and the same newspaper. She paid with another 20. That's odd, I thought, but then again, she's a little absent-minded. I thought Jeremy should have told her she already got her smokes, but it's not against the rules to sell somebody the same thing twice. That's when Ron came in again. He bought another tank of gas for his motorcycle again. I later checked the outdoor camera because I thought maybe he had another car he wanted to fill up, and the same pack of beef jerky. He paid with his credit card again. No big deal. I figured this was just a weird coincidence. Mrs. Templeton is forgetful, and Ron probably owns more than one Harley. That's when the guy in the cowboy hat came back in. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Don't get diesel, don't get diesel," I found myself whispering to my empty living room. But he did. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel and paid with another $100 bill. Every move he made was identical to his first visit, right down to the way he scratched his nose before he walked out. Either this guy is rich, owns a lot of trucks, and just moved into town, or something really bizarre was happening. I kept watching. Every customer for the next hour was the same as before, every single one. I was seriously freaked out, and then at 6:03, Mrs. Templeton walked back in. She bought her cigarettes and newspaper and paid with a 20 again. I thought I was going to lose it. I only watched another half hour before I started fast-forwarding through the rest. It was all the same. Every customer would come in at the exact same times, exactly 1 hour apart. Now I know what you're thinking. That sneaky motherfucker Jeremy had messed with the tapes. He had run a loop of his first hour of business over and over. That wasn't the case. There are windows around the cash register area that the camera covers, and I watched the sunlight fade as time ran on. Jeremy's routine didn't loop over. He swept, mopped, restocked, and did all his duties exactly how you would expect, but the same customers kept coming in. I was panicking at this point. Something was seriously wrong with what I was seeing, and I had no explanation for it. I skipped ahead to when he locked up and walked out to his car. He hadn't stolen anything, but I kept watching just to make sure. I fast-forwarded one last time to about midnight. At exactly 12:03, out of nowhere, Jeremy's face pops up on camera. I don't mean he moved his head into view. I mean that 1 second, the store was empty, and the next, his face was all I could see. He wasn't looking at the camera, he was looking at me, I was sure of it. I screamed and fumbled for the remote. By the time I grabbed it, he was gone, just as soon as he had left. One frame he was there, the next he wasn't. My hands were shaking like crazy, but I popped in another tape. The other indoor camera shows the back area, by the cash register, and I would be able to see how he got up to put his face in the camera like that. I skipped ahead to 12:03, but there was nothing. I would have been able to see him standing on a chair or something on this tape, but he wasn't there. I didn't see him enter the store at all after he left. It's like he wasn't really there. He doesn't know the security code, and no alarms were triggered that night after he locked up. What I did see, however, was that at 12:03, the motor oil vanished off the shelf. All of it. Same as Jeremy's face. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. I turned that tape off and went to bed, but I didn't get a wink of sleep. My body is exhausted right now, but my mind is racing. That tape was undoubtedly the creepiest, most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. I work in a few hours. My boss asked me to bring the tapes back in and let him know what I found, but really, what the hell am I going to say? Jeremy works the night shift tonight, directly after me, and the plan is for my boss to come in just before I leave and confront him with me, as I'm supposed to be the one who caught him stealing. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I suppose I'll have to show my boss the tapes, but I don't want to watch them with him. I never want to see something like that again. I can't get the image of Jeremy just smiling directly into the camera out of my mind. It was the creepiest look I've ever seen on another human being's face. Anyway, I'm gonna try again to get some last-minute sleep before I have to go in and deal with this. I'll let you guys know what happens. Update, 2:49 p.m. Updating from my phone. Apologies in advance for any errors. My boss just finished watching the last of the tapes. I told him what to expect, but you really can't prepare someone for something like that. He's scared shitless. I still am too. And Jeremy is due to come in at 4. We've got a little over an hour to get our shit together, but neither one of us knows what to say to him. Is he just a fucked up guy who likes to steal motor oil and scare the shit out of people? Or is he something else? I don't know if this is crazy, but does anyone think he could have anything to do with the time loop? My boss said he never noticed anything like that in the other tapes, but the way he popped up in this one made me think he knew I would be watching. It's like he wanted me to see what he could do, like he was showing off or something. The way he smiled into the camera was like a little kid showing you a sandcastle they just built or something. I don't know, I probably sound crazy. I sure feel the part. I'm going to talk to my boss some more. We have to calm ourselves down and figure out how to handle this. I'll update again tonight, but I have a really bad feeling about how this is going to play out. Update, 4:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 5:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 6:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 7:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 8:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 10:58 p.m. Holy shit. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. I just got home and saw my previous updates. Things make less sense now than ever. Here's what I can tell you. I went to work. Jeremy never showed up. My boss and I decided to call the police, as you're well aware. When I picked up the phone to call, though, the sun went out. I shit you not. That's what I thought happened. Apparently I blacked out for exactly 5 hours, because when I looked at the clock, it was 9:33. I think I got stuck in Jeremy's time loop, and then I snapped out of it at the exact point I blacked out, if that makes sense. But that's when things got really weird. My boss was right next to me when I blacked out, ready to corroborate my story to the cops. When I came to, the phone was in my hand, but it was dead. Not even a dial tone. My boss was still right there, but he wasn't moving. He was standing up, but frozen. I looked at the clock again, and it wasn't moving. The second hand was stuck on the 12. It was 9:33 exactly. The clock on the register, computer screen, wasn't moving either. My phone was frozen. There was even a customer at the register waiting for my boss to get him cigarettes. I'm betting that would have been his 5th pack of the day. I got the fuck out of there. Didn't lock up. Didn't turn the lights out. And sorry guys, I didn't grab the security tapes to upload on the internet. Believe me, that was the last thing on my mind. The gas station is on a major highway, and cars were parked all along it, except they weren't parked, they were frozen. The people inside were sitting still as wax statues. I got in my car and prayed that it would start. Thankfully, it did. About halfway home, time started up again. The static from the radio turned into music, like it's supposed to be, and from what I could tell by listening to the host talk in between songs, no one noticed the time freeze or whatever it was. I was the only one. Well, I'm sure Jeremy noticed as well. I still have no clue where he is or what he's doing. I'm hiding in my room and calling the police again in the morning. I don't know if I ever got through to them before, or if I did, whether they took me seriously. I'm scared for my life at this point. I'll update tomorrow, if I can. Final update, 10:33 a.m. I finally fell asleep last night around 4. I have no idea how I did it. I guess exhaustion finally got the best of me. This morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was my boss. He'd been calling me since about 6. He woke up when time turned back on last night and immediately called the cops. They came by to see what was wrong, and he told them everything. The police around here are all small-time guys. They were more concerned with the missing motor oil than anything, but my boss figured he would take it as long as he had their attention. They decided to go looking for Jeremy. We keep all our employees' applications on file, and since Jeremy just started working here, his was easy to find. They checked the address on it and headed over to his house. You're not going to believe what they found. The address Jeremy listed on his application was an empty lot, or at least now it is. There used to be a house there, but it burned down in 1993. Being a small town, almost everyone remembers that fire. A family of 4 used to live there way back when. Rumor has it that they had an estranged son who they never really talked about, but I can't say for sure if that's true. What I can say is true is that after an insurance investigation, the fire was ruled an arson. The entire house was soaked in oil and torched with a Molotov cocktail. The entire family was sleeping when it happened. None of them survived. They never caught the guy who did it. Rumor has it that when they tried to contact the estranged son, no one could find him. Anyway, my boss called and told me this, and I freaked out. Then he asked me to come to the gas station. "What are you, crazy?" I said, but he assured me that the cops were there with him. Then he dropped a bomb. The FBI were also in town, and they were going to talk to me one way or another, so I might as well come in. It was about 7:15, and I wanted to go back to bed, but I figured I wouldn't be able to sleep much more anyway, so I went down. 4 men in suits greeted me and told me to have a seat. We went over everything 2 or 3 times until they got all the details down. I told them about Jeremy, the security tape, last night at work. Everything. Finally, after I finished, one of the agents said, "Oh, Christ, we've got another one on our hands." Then they made me sign a bunch of papers saying I wouldn't tell anyone about what happened, so I can't say much more. I might be breaking the law just by posting this. So now I'm home. I'm not sure what to do with myself. That agent's words when I told him the story are going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Anyway, I've got to go. I have some errands to run today, and then I have to go into work to pick up some tapes. My boss and I think this new guy Jeremy, he's a complete creep, is stealing motor oil, and I have to watch the security footage to see if I can catch him doing it. I have better things to do, but my boss is paying me overtime under the table, and I'm trying to save up for vacation so I could really use the money. It should be pretty simple. The oil always goes missing right after his shifts. I figure I'll just watch the tapes, catch him in the act, and that will be that. September 17th, 2010. A couple of months ago, I began my classes at Chico State University. As I was preparing for my freshman year, I was able to find everything that I needed, except for a laptop. I'm not exactly very good at letting a dollar go for something, especially when I could get that something for less, so I scoured the internet for good deals on laptops, finding none that suited my frugal habits. Classes were only 2 weeks away, and I was becoming desperate for a computer. Several days later, I saw an ad in the newspaper for a laptop that was being sold for only $600, and not too far from where I live. It was a very nice Dell laptop too, seeming odd that it was being sold for almost $1,000 less than store price. I drove to the seller's address the following day. The house was farther out of the city, butting up to a dense forest. Outside of the house was an old Chevrolet and a mess of old signs and other various vintage-looking items. I rang the doorbell, and a thin man in a flannel jacket came to the door. When I asked about the laptop, he looked almost relieved and told me he was ready to sell it immediately. Luckily, I came with cash in hand, and after proof of good condition, I went home with a new computer. Excited to have my first self-bought laptop, I powered it up and began uploading my own programs and applications onto it. Upon searching the hard drive, I found a folder hidden away on it, which was odd because the man selling it told me that the memory was wiped clean and ready for a fresh start. The folder was titled September 17th, 2010, presumably a date. I opened it, revealing 6 videos and 3 pictures. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to watch the videos. The first was simply titled 001. It was shot from a shaky camcorder inside of a vehicle, recording a woman walking out of a bar and getting into her car at night. After a couple of seconds, the woman drove off, and almost immediately, the person recording began to drive after her. The video ended after 24 seconds. It almost seemed like the cameraman had been waiting for the woman for a while. Come to think of it, I wasn't too alarmed by this at the time, just a little unsettled. I opened the next video file, titled 002. I assumed that this was the next part of the first video. My assumption was right, as it began with the camera on top of the console facing out of the windshield. It was raining now, leading me to believe that this was a short while after the first video ended. I could barely make out that the vehicle 2 cars ahead of this one was the same car that the woman at the bar left in. This went on for an unsettling 47 seconds before the camera cut out. I began to get a little nervous, fearing that this might take a turn for the worst. But, as if I was watching a television show, I wanted to see where this was headed. Not totally concerned yet, I decided to press on. The third video was, of course, titled 003. This was the one that got me officially concerned. The clip began from the same shaky hands as the first clip. It was now pouring with rain outside of the car, and I could barely make out a figure in a fur coat with an umbrella walking to the front door of a house. I could only assume who this person was, and whose house this belonged to. The figure entered the house and closed the door. The following stillness greatly unnerved me. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of rain dumping on top of the car. After roughly 2 minutes of this nerve-wracking nothingness, the lights inside of the house cut out. Another minute or so went by before the camera was placed onto the console again, and the sound of a person exiting the car broke the stillness. After the car door quietly closed, another figure, this time hooded, could be seen walking towards the house. I began to feel a knot tightening in the bottom of my stomach as the stranger walked around to the back of the house. Whoever this person was, they definitely weren't supposed to be there. After another couple of seconds, the lights to the outside of the house cut out. It was pitch black, and only the rain alerted me that the camera was still rolling. The video ended after about 9 minutes of rain and darkness. I was now pretty sure that this was not an innocent little project or anything of that nature, and I began to feel stupid for not checking this laptop seller's credibility. Was this person stalking the woman the same person that I met with earlier? Throughout the whole experience, I had a dormant thought in the back of my head to call the police, but I wasn't ready just yet. Reluctantly now, I began the fourth video, 004. It was dark again, but the rain had stopped, and I was left with only silence. Not long after the clip began, I could make out the sound of footsteps on gravel, getting louder as someone approached the vehicle. The car door opened and the dome light was turned on, and I could tell that the camera was now on the floor of the car, pointing up towards the roof. I heard some fumbling in the background, and suddenly a thump sounded from the back of the truck. An arm abruptly obstructed the camera's view, and a large tarp could be seen being pulled out from the car. I had only one scenario running through my head, and I hoped that it wasn't true. A picture of the truck, taken earlier. The person picked up the camera, put it back onto the console, and began to back up. They drove for a good 3 minutes before parking in a branched-off road and exiting the car to work on the load they were carrying. 6 minutes after, the car was moved again to a different location, and the camera was picked up and carried away from the car underhanded. I could see now that it was the same shit bucket truck that was in front of the seller's house. I was about ready to call the cops on this creep when the camera turned towards the house. It was a completely different house than the one I visited. I was a little relieved by this, though it didn't prove anything. As the fourth video came to an end, I was wondering whether or not I was prepared to see what came next. I could only hope that this was a prank, or at least had a happy ending. 005 began inside the house. It was extremely dark, and the only thing I could make out was a figure that would occasionally walk in front of the camera. It was also quiet for the first few moments, minus the occasional barking of a dog outside. Eventually, a small sound could be heard. It soon escalated to a loud, muffled scream. Shaking and struggling noises became more apparent as time went on, as well as crying. A light came on, and the camera was lifted and panned to the center of the room, revealing a beaten and bloody woman tied to a chair. From what I could make out, this was, in fact, the woman from the bar. The camera zoomed in on her face for what seemed like an eternity before stopping. I couldn't believe that this was happening. My original hope that this was a movie or something like that had long since diminished. With only one video remaining, I was beginning to fear for my own safety. I locked my door, closed my blinds, and pushed onward. I began 006 with a small hope that this woman was still alive and that I could have her saved. The final installment of this horror show began in a bathroom setting. The camera was placed on the counter, facing a mirror in which I could see a door. The only sound I could make out was a familiar one that destroyed my hopes: power tools. I sat in front of the screen for what felt like hours before the sound stopped. More silence. Then heavy footsteps, accompanied by what sounded like something being dragged. The doorknob turned and the door was pushed open. Out of the darkness of the rest of the house appeared a middle-aged woman dressed in what I can only describe as lab attire, sporting a respirator and a pair of long rubber gloves. This, for some strange reason, gave me a small amount of relief. In the reflection, the woman struggled to drag something to the bathtub. As she hoisted it into the tub, I could see that it was a large black garbage bag. The still shot of the girl, I felt like I was dreaming. It was like I was watching a horror movie unfolding on the screen. She lifted the bag up from the tub, now empty, except for whatever entrails that still dropped out. She picked up the camera and placed it on the ground facing the tub. On the floor in front of it was an assortment of corrosive substances and several other empty containers. The woman began to dump the liquids into the tub, which was followed by an awful, awful noise that I can only describe as pop rocks mixed with coke. The video ended, and I was left bewildered and panicked. I finally opened the pictures. The first was a picture of the truck. The second was a picture of the girl, tied up before she was beaten. And the third brought up a corrupted file notice, but maybe that's a good thing. I managed to keep the two pictures before I handed the laptop over to police. I was reimbursed my $600, along with a bonus. Apparently, the victim was the young girlfriend of the older woman's ex-husband. The older woman was arrested almost a year before, but was cleared of all charges due to a lack of evidence, and the ex-husband was incarcerated instead. I guess this was the missing link. I hope this has solved any unanswered questions. Although I'm not sure who the man in the flannel jacket was, or how he got a hold of the laptop, or how he owns the same truck as the murderer. I guess I'll just leave that to the police. Have you seen this man? I am not a dog person. This hasn't always been the case, though. As a matter of fact, I used to love them. I grew up telling everyone that I would be a veterinarian one day. Had that been the case, I'd like to think that I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. I'm a nervous wreck. As long as I can remember, I've suffered from constant paranoia. If you asked my parents, they'd tell you an entirely different story. According to them, I was calm, cool, and collected as a child. They say it wasn't until I was around 12 when the way I carried myself drastically changed. I don't remember much from back then. However, there was a particular scene from my childhood that I'll never be able to push out of my mind. Something, or rather someone, that has shadowed me for the rest of my life. January 1st, 1994. Remember how I said I wasn't a dog person? Well, there's a reason for that. As I said, I told my parents that I wanted to be a veterinarian. They supported me. They wanted me to be successful. I take for granted how much they cared for me. They bought me books on animal anatomy. They took me to zoos. They bought me various VHS documentaries on animals. They tried their best to raise me into the adult that I wanted to be, the adult that they could be proud of. My birthday was in November. I was turning 12. My previous attempts at asking my parents for a pet had always ended in an uneventful manner. They would say I wasn't old enough, that I wasn't prepared for the responsibility of looking after a living, breathing animal. I was set to prove them wrong. This year, I was fucking 12. I'd been reading up on all of those animal books, and this year, I knew I was ready. Once again, I told my parents that I wanted an animal. Their reaction was different this time. My father gave me a single, maybe. And with that, I knew what I'd be getting for my birthday. It was no surprise when I woke up on the day to a small puppy licking my face. I was thrilled. There my parents were, standing at my bedroom door, smiling warmly. They wished me a happy birthday and gave me a speech about how I needed to treat the dog the way I would any other living being. They provided me with dog food, bowls, and a leash. In that moment, I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. That dog was my best friend. The time I spent with the dog was great. I was an only child, homeschooled. I was never really able to have much interaction with people my age, not that I'd have a problem with doing so. My dog, who I'd named Theo, had steadily grown a bond with me over the course of a month. We bonded the way any other kid would with his dog. We went on walks, we played together, I bathed him, fed him, and overall tried to raise him the best I could, as my parents had done for me. Needless to say, they were impressed. Their opinion of me soon changed. It was January 1st, the beginning of a new year and a new beginning for me. I woke up at around 10 a.m., a late start for me. I had never actually made it to midnight on New Year's before. I felt like absolute shit. I was greeted in the kitchen by my mother, who had provided a delicious breakfast. My mother's cooking was stuff of legend. As I sat at the dining room table to eat, Theo greeted me from under the table and sat down at my feet. I slipped him a piece of bacon. He was delighted. My breakfast was cut short. One of my chores was to get the mail every day. As soon as I heard the familiar sound of the mail truck, I shot up out of my chair. One of my animal documentaries taught me about Ivan Pavlov and his dogs. Funny how I didn't know I was being conditioned to react a certain way to the sound of that truck. I was still tired from last night. I fumbled toward the front door, not paying much attention. As soon as I opened it, Theo took off as fast as he could. I couldn't process what had just happened. He had never done that before. I collected my thoughts and decided to go after him. I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack and ran outside. As soon as I stepped foot on my porch, I froze. Theo hadn't gotten far. He hadn't even left the front yard. The yard's exit was blocked by a man. Another picture of this man. This was the first time I saw him. The man looked straight at me. He didn't blink. I didn't know what to do or how to feel. At first, I was grateful. He was the only thing standing between Theo and the rest of the world. He said nothing. Theo was looking up at him. He wagged his tail. He panted. It was as if the man didn't notice the dog was there. He just kept staring. I wanted to say something. I wanted to thank him. The way he was looking at me was as if he was expecting me to say something, but I couldn't bring myself to. Without averting his gaze, he kneeled down and picked up Theo by the scruff of his neck. Theo whined. I wanted to tell him to put down my dog, but again I couldn't. I simply couldn't think of appropriate words. My mind was all in a jumble. I couldn't move, and I couldn't think straight. All I could do was watch. The man reached into his pocket, pulled out a knife, and cut the dog's throat in one quick motion. Blood spilled onto the snow-covered ground. He held the dog in the air for a few seconds, letting Theo's blood form a puddle underneath him. He then simply let go. Theo fell with a light crunch onto the reddened snow. Again, the man's gaze did not leave mine. He dropped the knife to the ground and merely walked away. It wasn't until he was completely out of sight that I could move again. I made my way over to Theo's garbling corpse and stood over him. I wanted to cry, but couldn't shed a single tear. My mother emerged from the house, surely wondering why getting the mail was taking so long. I don't blame her for screaming. She saw me standing over the mangled corpse of Theo, knife on the ground. It didn't take a genius to put two and two together. The scene described itself. This man. In the following months, my parents had forced me into seeing a psychiatrist. When asked why I killed Theo, I tried to tell him that it wasn't me. I tried my best to tell him about the man. I could tell he wasn't buying it. "All right," said the therapist with a smug tone. "Tell me what this man looked like." That's when I realized I couldn't describe him. It's not that I didn't remember his face. It's just he was so generic that I wouldn't be able to describe him without describing millions of other people in the world. His face was so forgettable. I know I stared at him for a good 5 minutes. One would assume I would be able to remember the face of a man who had killed my dog without breaking eye contact with me. It was like I knew what he looked like, but my brain couldn't translate his appearance into words. I didn't answer the therapist's question. I simply slumped into my chair. Throughout my entire life, this man has popped up on multiple occasions. I may go into further detail in the future, but all I can say for now is that he definitely exists. I may seem crazy, but I know what I saw that day. I always see him, whether he's among a crowd while watching the news or in my dreams. He's real, and he's always watching. Rap Rat. Ever heard of Nightmare? Like a lot of other games in the 90s, it came with a VHS, which you timed with your play. The character on the video would give you instructions on what to do while you played the game in real time. Being a scaredy cat, I refused to play it when my mom bought it for us. My brother was disappointed about not being able to play it, but my mom had a solution. She brought out Rap Rat. It was a cheap, dingy little thing catered to kids my age. You went around the board, collected cheese, and the first player to reach the end would win. It seemed simple enough, and since it reminded us of Mousetrap, which we didn't have, there were no objections. We popped the movie into the VHS and set up the board. The first part of the video was just a simple explanation of the rules as well as instructions on how the game worked. Then Rap Rat came onto the TV. He was not what any of us had been expecting. My smaller brother, who was only 3 at the time, immediately left the room crying. The rat did not even resemble a rat. The ears were far too big. It had a mouth lined with 2 teeth, the inside of which looked almost swollen. The most striking part about the thing, though, was its eyes. They were large, glassy, and fish-like. I asked, then bothered, then begged my mom to turn it off. Rap Rat suddenly shouted loudly, screaming and wailing, saying, "Wait your turn," in a demonic, low-pitched voice that was not at all like his normal, obnoxious, nasal voice. In the background, we could hear the narrator saying, "He's Rap Rat and he's the boss," over and over again in an overly serious tone. The video was indescribable. Images crossed the screen in quick succession, overcut with Rap Rat's expressionless eyes. The images were some things I was afraid of at the time. A person looking over a balcony, a hornet slowly stinging someone's eye, an extreme close-up of a tarantula, a pit full of writhing cobras, and a bloodied syringe filled with green fluid. We immediately turned the video off, and I ran out of the room screaming, slamming the door behind me. It took my mom 20 minutes to convince me that the video was gone, that I would never ever see it again. I had nightmares all week about Rap Rat. That wasn't the last time I saw Rap Rat. While my girlfriend and I were preparing to move in together, I was cleaning out the closet of my room and found it again, with the same VHS and the same board game inside. It was almost perfectly intact, save for a thick layer of cobwebs and dust bunnies on top of it. This was strange. Didn't my mother get rid of it? And what was the game doing in my room? I let out a bit of a gasp when I found it, and my girlfriend came into the room, asking what was the matter. Breathing harshly, I said, "Rap, rat." She laughed a bit, asking if it was a joke. I shook my head and explained that it wasn't. She didn't believe me. Nobody did. I decided that the only way to prove it to her was to show her the video. I borrowed my neighbor's VHS and played the video for her. However, the images had changed. I saw a clown, its nose bursting and spraying blood onto the screen. I saw a woman alone in a dark room. I saw a man being forced to pick up white-hot metal and hold it in his outstretched hand, turning his hand to a leathery mess. The scratching I heard as a child continued, picking up, getting louder and louder. Then Rap Rat showed up and began twisting and convulsing, its arms thrusting this way and that. The costume wasn't a costume anymore. The felt was real fur. Its face wasn't plastic, but instead a bristle of thorns with teeth. The eyes turned inwards and suddenly popped out again. Rap Rat's huge fish eyes were inside out, staring right at me, watching my every move, my every expression. It grinned widely and gestured at my girlfriend and I with a single, outstretched, inhuman hand. I could hear the faintest scratching at my front door. The TV went blank and showed static. The scratching got louder. It wasn't scratching anymore, but thumping. The thumping of tiny feet on wood. My girlfriend embraced me in fear and my senses kicked in. Before anything else happened, I stopped the video, ejected it, and unplugged the VHS. The scratching stopped. When I looked out the living room window, nothing was there. The police showed up soon after, warning us that a neighbor had seen a figure outside our door and had called in concern. My girlfriend and I simply couldn't explain what had happened and had to tell the police officer that it was us. I was furious that a children's game was terrifying me. I went to pick up the tape, but the VHS burned my hand. It felt like I had touched a Bunsen burner on the highest setting. We had to get the oven mitts from the kitchen in order to take it out, and even then, it was scorching hot. I brought it outside, tossed it down on the sidewalk, and crushed it with my winter boots. Afterwards, my girlfriend and I had bad dreams every night. We would both wake up in the middle of the night and describe eerily similar images that we saw in our sleep. The scratching would always be there when lights were off and the room was pitch black, save for the moonlight coming in through the window. Now, though, it would happen every time I went near the front door and every time we said Rap Rat's name. It sounded as if something very small was dragging something across the ground outside of the door. Pacing, waiting. I would simply wait myself, with the covers pulled up to my neck, until I succumbed to exhaustion. At this point, I was determined to sue the company for damages. The first thing I did was call my mother and ask where she got Rap Rat. She had no idea. I found a merchant who sold versions of Rap Rat and asked how I could get in touch with the company. He sent me this email. I don't know about the game, but I know it was created by the same people who created Nightmare. The company is called A Couple of Cowboys. Try them. I did a bit more research and discovered that the company became defunct in 1994, only 2 years after they created Rap Rat. I discovered why soon after. How Rap Rat came to be. In 1992, the year of the game's development, a couple of cowboys commissioned a manufacturing company in Haiti to create the doll portrayed in the game. The company who created the puppet ran a sweatshop where they forced women and children to produce various components of the puppet, including the felt and plastic of the doll. One day, a young Haitian girl got her arm caught in the industrial sewing machine. The spring loader, unable to handle the weight on the machine, came loose and struck the child's neck, killing her instantly. A few days after the funeral, the mother of the child came to the factory, demanding to see the owner, who denied that he had anything to do with it. In a fit of rage, the mother said that the blood from the innocent would seep into every crevice of the doll, every component with which it was created, and that all who touched it would die. She claimed to have summoned a fear demon and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Apparat will curse you." The owner simply laughed and told his corporate bosses about Apparat. They spread the joke from person to person, and the game was renamed Rap Rat, a loose anagram of Apparat. Each recitation of the name Apparat brought with it a greater and greater curse. Only 2 years after Rap Rat was created, the company was shut down and the owners hired by Mattel. There were stories of the workers begging for days off, skipping work for weeks, and finding the puppet in strange places. There were also stories of suicides, grim, violent deaths in which the workers would stab their hands and set themselves on fire, writing, "I am fear," on the nearest surface in blood. Nobody knows where the Rap Rat doll went after the original creators disappeared. Some say that the last things the victims saw before going insane were large, sunken, fish-like eyes. Words of warning. 1. Never ever say Apparat out loud. Saying a demon's name out loud is an invitation to them, a calling. If you have already done this, it cannot be undone. 2. Do not try to speak to or contact Apparat. 3. Avoid being awake between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. when Rap Rat is the most likely to try to scare you. The VHS is back. I thought I stomped on it, smashed it to Kingdom Come, but it's back. I found it in my sock drawer yesterday. This time I was ready. A whole bunch of people have been contacting me, trying to get the tape or some sort of video from the board game. My answer to you is that it's just too dangerous. If I did that, it could very well drive you insane, scare you to death. The video and the game and Rap Rat itself have some sort of strange power. Rap Rat follows me everywhere I go. I see little shadows in the corner of my eye or hear sounds coming down the hallway when I'm the only one home. If Rap Rat is there, it will let you know, but it will never let you see it. Until it's too late, of course. A lot of people have been watching the normal video from the normal board game. That's the thing. Rap Rat can be normal. It will trick you into thinking it's just a puppet and then stalk you day and night. Nicotine mist, vinyl teeth. 2:07 a.m., Dockside District. Sodium lamps buzzed overhead, turning the mist the color of nicotine. Ray Collins spotted the target parked nose in between 2 dumpsters. Midnight Blue 09, Crown Vic, VIN ending 8765, 3 payment booklets in arrears, plates already stripped, windows fogged, a repo man's Christmas. Ray rolled the truck alongside, killed the headlights, and stepped down. The Vic idled, a faint heat shimmer off the tailpipe. He tapped the glass. Empty. He smelled old French fries and something sweeter, like the inside of a new coffin. Wheel lift ready. He slid the Slim Jim past the weather strip, popped the door in the column, and shifted to neutral. The driver's seat twitched forward an inch. Nothing more than worn rails, he told himself. He hooked the wheel cups, winched the front end high, and chained the rear. The Vic's weight settled with a sigh, almost grateful. Ray climbed back into the cab. In the mirror, the sedan dangled like a caught shark, headlights dimming as the truck's alternator pulled voltage. He cracked the window, lit a cigarette, and rolled out toward the county impound. Halfway there, the steering wheel on the flatbed jerked hard left. Ray felt the tug in his own wrists before he saw the strap part. The Vic's front tire bit through 2 inches of nylon and the car rolled off the lift, nose dropping, rear bumper kissing asphalt at 40. Sparks showered the windshield. The flatbed skewed, guardrail spearing the passenger door. Cable whipped back, laid Ray's forearm open to the bone. Blood dotted the dash like hot solder. The Vic came to rest sideways across both lanes, engine still idling. Headlights blinked twice, lazy, satisfied. Then the motor coughed and died. Steam drifted from the hood seams. Ray sat behind a cracked wheel, sleeve red, heartbeat louder than the diesel. He wrapped the arm with a shop rag, limped back to the car, and winched it aboard again. Tighter this time, chains crossed like a straitjacket. The Vic never rocked, never squealed tires. It just rode, patient. Back at the office, dawn leaking through the cracked blinds, Emily Lyman met him with a folder fat enough to sprain a wrist. 5 previous repossessions on KX 98765, each ending the same way. Driver quits, driver moves, driver vanishes. The last guy, Arnie Bell, left his clipboard on the driver's seat. Ink had bled upward into the headrest fiber, feathered like frost. Emily handed Ray the dashcam card she'd pulled from evidence. Graduate student owned it before the bank. Microbiology. Ray slid the SD into the dock computer. Night vision footage filled the screen. The student driving, talking to himself about respiration rate of polymers. Cabin light on. The seat seams flex like gills testing air. The feed freezes. The student's mouth open in a silent cough, shoulder belt cinched so tight the tongue disappears under his jaw. Ray ejected the card and pocketed it. "I'm taking it to the pit." Emily started to argue, but Ray was already out the door, Vic chained behind him like a captured wolf. The shop pit sat under a corrugated roof, oil-blackened concrete sloped to a drain. Ray lowered the lift until the Vic's tires kissed the rails. He killed the bay lights, leaving only the fluorescents overhead, the kind that flutter before they die. Hood up, he reached for the ECU harness. The hood slammed, not dropped, slammed, metal biting the bones of his knuckles. Ray yelled, jerked back, but the hood held like a bear trap. From the engine bay came a wet click, then another. Hoses detaching themselves, the airbox splitting along a seam that hadn't existed. A coolant line whipped up, spraying pink fluid that smelled of saliva and copper. It lashed Ray's cheek, searching for ear, nostril, any entrance. He snatched the Slim Jim from his belt, drove it through the radiator. Pale red fountained out, steaming. The Vic shuddered, engine coughing in spasms, headlights flickering like dying flashlights. Ray felt the hood slacken. He yanked free, stumbled back, slipping on the slick. The car settled, exhaling. For a moment, the garage was quiet, except for the slow drip of fluid and Ray's own ragged breathing. He wrapped the arm again, now both arms ribboned, and drove the empty flatbed back to the yard. The Vic stayed in the pit, hood pinned with a forklift tine, chains webbed around axles. He told Emily he'd file the destruction paperwork in the morning. Then he went home, swallowed 4 ibuprofen, and slept with the lights on. Morning never quite arrived. At 2:14 a.m. the next shift, Emily sat alone under the fluorescents, dispatch screen blue on her face. A new order spat from the printer. Same VIN, new address, 2 blocks from where Ray first hooked it. She rubbed her eyes and keyed the mic. No answer. She tried Ray's cell. Voicemail picked up. She listened. First came his voice, low. "It's still breathing. Listen." Then a soft creak, like someone settling into a recliner. Then wetter sounds, fibers tearing, foam compressing, a seatbelt ratcheting home. Then nothing. Emily stood and walked to the lot. The Vic sat gleaming under the pole light, midnight paint reflecting the moon like a puddle of oil. Driver's door ajar, interior light on, seatbelt tongue dangling like bait. Mileage rolled back to 0000017. She lifted the mic to warn the next driver. The belt snapped out, blurred across the asphalt, looped her wrist. Before she could scream, it retracted, yanking her off her feet. She slid across gravel, shoes scraping, fingers clawing for the doorframe. The belt whipped again, across her torso, click of the buckle as loud as a gunshot. The door slammed. The engine turned over, headlights brightening to a surgeon's glare. Inside, the cabin smelled of warm vinyl and something copper. The seat molded around her, side bolsters hugging like old friends. She felt the fabric breathe against her spine. The Vic rolled forward, crushing Ray's forgotten clipboard under a front tire. In the dispatch office, the printer woke, spitting out a fresh work order. Repossession, 09 Crown Vic, Blue, VIN, 2FABP7BVX9KX98765. Driver, to be announced. Paper piled in the tray, curling like a tongue. Without. What do you do when the clock is irrevocably wrong? My watch continues to tick. The digits keep moving forward, but nothing else does. Has it been weeks? Years? At a certain point, you stop asking, stop counting. If you're denied basic human contact for so long, your mind will start to wander, almost as if your body is no longer a suitable housing for it. It tries to crawl, squirm out of your ears and eyes, desperately searching for a home where it can be properly nourished and fed, but here, there is no better place. I slowly sit up. The once vibrantly decorated room where I lay had long since faded before I found it, and my tenure within only saw it fade further. My watch says it's around 9 in the morning, but that never-ending twilight that fills the clouded sky serves as the constant reminder that time has moved on from this place. The minutes may keep passing, but nothing else changes unless I attempt to do something, and even then, my minor impact is nothing more than the sound of a pin dropping during an artillery strike. Any hopes of life returning have long since vanished. After the first few days, weeks even, I gave up any pretense of pretending that normality could still exist. I haven't changed my clothes in months, but the usual accumulated dirt and grime from a proper day's activities is nowhere to be found, as is the hunger and thirst associated with the heartbeat I can still feel within my chest. I'm alive in the traditional sense, but logic and science have long abandoned me in this place. In the before, I fancied myself an intellectual. Puzzles and codes kept me up at nights, and unlocking secrets brought the greatest reward. Try as I might, the foreign shapes and symbols imprinted on my left forearm since the day I was abandoned are still as meaningless to me as when I first saw them. Yet another reminder that my predicament wasn't the result of a freak accident. Something caused the dissolution of reality as I knew it, and that something left me here. We, as a race of beings, regardless of the scientific or philosophical viewpoint, use time as a device to measure change. So perhaps I'm wrong when I say time has abandoned this place. Change has. The leaves may sway in the light breeze that blew every once in a while, but they hang in a limbo between summer and fall. Whether I am awake or asleep, the temperature remains a brisk 69 degrees. It is something out of a movie. I used to love movies. The electricity still flows, but now they only remind me of life before. What I wouldn't give for a tumbleweed or the chirp of grasshoppers and crickets. Even running from a masked killer with a knife would be better than my aimless wanderings through this desolate place. I used to think, to learn. Now I try and think as little as possible. I could try and leave town again, though all roads lead to Rome, so I'll never get anywhere. No matter the route you take, whether it be tarmac or slogging through the woods, eventually it brings you right back to where you started. I even tried the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb trick, but all that taught me was my world had become some inescapable dome. Venture out in one direction, and you find yourself coming in from the opposite side. It was my own personal Pac-Man board, but devoid of pellets or ghosts to keep me company. Sometimes I entertain the notion that the rest of the world, every living creature, are all in their own version of this town, all splintered off in their own string. That this was the result of some unseen force, and it initiated the unraveling of the tapestry we call reality. I may be alone, but there is someone walking with me, only in their own copy of this place. We may be alone, but we are alone together. I used to write on the walls. Out of sheer boredom, I once painted the town red, literally. The little change this place can manage is to undo what I did. Not all at once, but slowly. When I laid siege to my home, unleashing my inner arsonist, it took a couple months for things to return to normal, but the dead, burnt wood grew back into walls. Merchandise that lay dormant in stores untangled itself from the blackened wreckage and became guidebooks and keychains once more. I slept, and the world restored itself. I am free of the biological imperative to sleep, but not of the effects of sleep deprivation. I was losing myself a little each day. Anyway, after a few failed attempts, I knew there was nothing more to see, and reducing myself to a shambling husk wasn't going to make anything easier. I thought it might have, but recovering from it was far worse than an eternity of boredom. What do you do when you've seen everything in the world? They say death is the absence of life, so where was I? I was alive, but nothing else was. I would call it hell, but hell denotes suffering and torment for my sins. I've spent days on end staring at myself in the mirror just so I knew I was being observed by someone. Clearly, whatever did this tired of me long ago. The want for prying eyes should have been some twisted fantasy, but it was an everyday occurrence. Cold steel is a welcome feeling. There were plenty of guns in the town. All I had to do was take one. I didn't know anything about them, just that if it was loaded and the safety was off, it would do the job. I didn't know the make or model of the pistol I had in my hand. It said Glock on the side, but that didn't mean anything to me. It was fully loaded, but I only needed one shot. Temple to temple. That's the way I remember reading about before. Go under the chin and the bullet could bounce off the roof of your mouth. Then I would have to try again. The barrel felt good against my skull, like it belonged there. It's one of the first things you think of when you're truly alone. The thought never left my brain, and now I want it splattered as far as possible. I want to turn what I thought was a gift into a gray and red paste decorating the walls. I wonder if my brethren trapped in their realities were sitting on the bed too, contemplating the end. You never realize just how loud a gun is until you pull the trigger of one next to your ear. It only takes milliseconds. I could feel the metal burrow into my skin. It pierces the outer layers, driving past my skull into the soft membranes of my mind. The gunpowder burns the skin left on the side of my head as the bullet wobbles through my tissue, set off kilter by what I was trying to destroy. My body internally screams. Nerves fire, desperately trying to get an answer to what trauma was being inflicted, their energy dissipating into the empty place where the corresponding synapses once existed. I had no final thought. There was nothing in the world left to think about. I can only assume my body crumpled to the floor, muscles now free of the controlling mechanism that told them to hold me upright. My eyes open. I am back in the faded motel bed I had spent what could be eons in. The foreign writing on my left arm was the monument to my situation. I looked down at my right arm. An 8th line was there now, next to the 7 that appeared one by one after nights like this. It looks like it has always been there, taunting me. I could only think that somewhere, something out there smiled and said, "Nice try." brick curtain, steel throat. I'm on the downslope of New Cross Road, knees soft, coasting. The chicken katsu bag is wedged in my thermal cube. The app says, drop 3C, top floor flat, leave on doorstep, easy money, minus the climb. My legs are still warm from the last sprint, tips at 17 pounds so far, 6 more to midnight bonus. I hum along to nothing, earbuds dead since Peckham. My phone buzzes again. New pickup, Ming's Kitchen, 1 to 3 Trevithick Alley. Trevithick doesn't exist on Google, but the tip is 12 pounds up front and I'm thirsty for it. I shrug and press accept. The map zooms to a blue vein between 2 brick walls that shouldn't have a gap. I ride straight at them, bars steady, and the bricks peel apart like curtains, just wide enough for handlebars. Inside is a shipping container with a red Walk logo. One bloke is wearing a Deliveroo jacket, 2 sizes too big, his eyes cooked red. He shoves a bag at me, no words. The food's hot enough to sting through foil. I pocket the cash and U-turn. The bricks close behind me like they never opened. Another ping before I hit the main road. Same restaurant, same ghost alley. Tip is 15 pounds. I message support. Address fake. A bot replies, use in-app navigation. I ride the vein again. Red-eye me is still there, like he never left, holding the next bag. Same weight, same steam. I take it and leave. This time I notice the jacket's torn at the sleeve. The same rip I got snagged on railing last week, only fresher. The third order lands while I'm still chewing air. 20-pound tip. I snap a selfie. Me, alley mouth. Caption reading, marry me mystery tipper. I post it, bricks already knitting closed behind me. Fourth order. The container's longer inside, stainless steel, not corrugated. 4 riders are waiting, all me. One with a scar where tomorrow's zit sits, one thinner like he's been skipping dinners, one older, beard salted grey. None speak, their phones glow the same blue. I look down. My reflection in the prep counter shows eyes I haven't slept into yet. A chef appears with Dad's face if he ever smiled, and slides a bag and a tenner across. The paper's warm, damp, smells like the butcher's drain. I take both and back out slowly. The bricks seal. Fifth order, a banner I've never seen, yellow on black. Stay in saddle, do not enter kitchen. Tip 30 pounds, I break at the alley mouth. Scarmy walks out carrying my exact order. His eyes plead, don't. He's on foot, no bike. I let him pass. When I look back, he's already shrinking into the dark between streetlights. Sixth ping, return to Ming's, 50 pounds, accept or suspend. My hands freeze on the bars. I see Mum's catalog balance, rent due tomorrow. Darren gone since he tapped, report issue. I accept. The alley yawns wider, lit like surgery. The container's now a corridor, stainless steel stretching further than I. Riders line both sides, a conveyor of MEs, each at different ages of knackered. They slap stickers, fold foil, never look up. At the far end, a kid collapses. 15, acne-like constellations. No one stops. Chef Dad catches the bag mid-fall and sets it back on the belt. I walk the line. The youngest Jay whispers without moving his lips, don't eat the food. The steam tastes of iron. I reach Chef Dad. He offers the bag plus the square thermal backpack they stopped giving out last year. Inside is my stolen bike light, cracked red plastic still blinking. Recognition hits like cold water. This shift never ends. Every drop spits another me, another fee. The tips aren't love, they're gag money. 2 buttons on my phone. Confirm delivery or report issue. Confirm and I stay, become him, feeding fresh me's forever. Report and I'm logged off the way Darren was, phone dead, rent still due. I press report issue, the screen glitches, the customer name pops up, J. Turner, ETA 0 minutes. I understand, I'm rider and order. I snatch the cracked light and smash it against the steel. Sparks, steam, alarm. but the line keeps moving, assembling the same tub, same foil, same logo. I run, backpack over shoulder, food bag in hand. The bricks fold behind me like a napkin, smaller, smaller. I deliver to myself, a kid on a curb outside my flat, gym trainers glowing, waiting for the first ping. I hand over the bag and refuse the tip. Younger me blinks, confused. I pedal away. At Greenwich Pier, I lob the phone and watch it sink. Wind hits my face. Somewhere downstream, another phone pings, but it's not mine. Gum Woman. Ever since I was little, I have been more or less averse to touching. This does not necessarily include family and friends, all of whom I love dearly. Although that prickly, dangerous sense still kicks in from time to time if anything stronger than a gentle tap or palm placement grazes my body. I just really appreciate my space, and I try my best to accommodate the people I meet on a daily basis in the same way. There is nothing more nightmarish than not having sovereignty over one's own body. This is probably why the nightmare I had as a kid has stuck for so long with me. At least it felt like a nightmare. That's what I tell myself even now. I don't really remember how it starts, but I am always in my childhood home. It's pretty much exactly the same. Same ugly blue carpet pattern, same 90s style wood paneling, same dingy yellow bulbs that dangle downward like eyes from above. I reach for the lockless bathroom door and push my way in. Even as a little boy, I remember my hands feeling so large and clumsy. As I peel off my clothes and start the bath, I feel at peace. Water has always been fundamental in preserving my peace, I realize. It covers the skin in a protective layer, one you can see through, but not entirely. It conceals me. Then, as I sit there in the quiet, surrounded by dirty white tiles and the gentle lapping of bath water, I feel it. A plunging sensation coming from the pipes, a disturbance underneath. When the gum woman arrives, she does so with no particular sense of urgency or announcement of intent. Her texture is this pinkish flesh-toned mass of gum, like a constantly sticking and unsticking mound of vaguely humanoid taffy. The only thing human at all about her is her bulbous head featuring 2 divots where her eyes should be, a wormy-lipped mouth, and black, stringy hair which remains permanently embedded and knotted in her flesh. She simply and efficiently pours out of the drain and begins to rise and crash down on me like some awkward, fleshy wave. She moans loudly, her wormy lips yearning for my neck, tickling and weakening me. I am not laughing in the dream. She has no hands to speak of, since her entire body is an unshaped hand. She uses it to smother me, pushing me down into the bathtub. And in a way, I feel sorry for her. It's not like her molestation is some sort of willing, malignant force. It feels more like an animal, aggressively and unconsciously pushing itself onto me from all sides. This is nature. This is how the world feels to me. An unfortunate dance that every living thing have no choice but to take part in. In my helpless thrashing, I've turned into some sort of uncomfortably human smoothie, an arbitrary, defenseless plaything for her. I cry out for help to someone standing nearby, but either due to willing ignorance, inability to help, or simply not hearing me, the figure jitters away into the background dream haze that has replaced the walls and floor. I remember then, waking up and crying out, breathing heavily as if I could still smell her damp hair sticking to my face. There's a pool of sweat, and sometimes else, growing beneath me. I have never had that dream again since. I think what particularly sticks out to me is that my aversion to unhealthy touching has persisted to this day, despite my parents' adamant stance that they kept their eyes on me my entire childhood. I'd be inclined to agree with them, all circumstances considered. But how do I know that that fear isn't just a neurological quirk? These things are primal, dark, and ravenous. I look at my own fingerprints and I shudder in horror at their inevitable desiring. I curl up in my shower sometimes, and I try not to look at the congealed mass of black hair growing on the marble rim. I know it's mine, and yet, separated and dead, it grows on its own. I peel and pick at the ingrown hair growing dead center between my brows until it's a bloody mess. I hate being in my skin. Most days, it's tolerable. I enjoy the presence of other people sometimes, even as they gently brush up against me and remind me my flesh is not a prison. It's one I can reshape in my image. But then I remember that dream. I remember her pasty, toy-like flesh. I remember how eagerly she devours me. I feel myself getting hungrier each day as I distance myself from everyone once more and become a yearning stranger. And as the months turn into years, as this paranoid aversion becomes a sort of strange perversion of intimacy, I seek to replace that which was taken from me by taking it from other people. And I find infinite regret in realizing that part of me likes it. I want to devour and be devoured in turn. I'm the same as the animal that lives in my sewers. The big stop. I'm only a few years old, but I already know your name, date of birth, address, and the number on your government-issued ID. I even know, to within the minute, the last time you used the bathroom. This isn't difficult, and if you'll give me a few minutes, I'll explain how I know this. I work in predictive analytics. It's my job to know all about you and everyone. You see, you went shopping recently and bought a product. Any product. It doesn't really matter what. In fact, you bought several products, and when you did, a record of what you bought was sent to a vast computer network. Within that network, a lifetime record of your purchases is being accumulated. It doesn't matter what store you shopped at, or even how you paid. The information always gets to me. For example, I know that you like camping. This is because you frequently buy camping gear. Big deal, you say to yourself. I'm supposed to be impressed that you figured out I like camping. No, this isn't impressive. Not yet anyway. That's because we're only at stratum 1 in the progression of learning all about you. Stratum 2. Now we're going to bring in an additional data point. Not only do you buy camping gear, but you buy light beer as well, typically on weekends. From this, I can guess with 72% accuracy that you also like auto racing because it fits the profile. I'm still waiting to be impressed, you say. It's not a big stretch that someone who likes beer and camping is also going to like auto racing. Well, you're right to still be unimpressed. And that's because we've only touched on the first 2 strata, but there's 8 more levels to go. Stratum 3. So here's where things get a little weird. You purchase beer every weekend. You went camping in a national forest 2 weeks ago, and you streamed auto racing on your television yesterday. Now let's include the fact that you purchased a front row ticket to see your favorite NU metal band last month. At this point, I have enough information about you to start making odd yet strangely accurate predictions. So here you go. Sometime within the next 2 months, you're going to buy a fire extinguisher for your kitchen, just because you think that it's a safe thing to do. What do camping, beer, nu metal, and auto racing have to do with fire extinguishers? Nothing and everything. The human brain exhibits complex internal connections that can't be understood by the common observer, but can be predicted by complex computer algorithms. Have you ever been browsing the internet when an ad popped up for the exact thing you were just thinking about, even though you didn't recently do a search for it? That, my fair people, is stratum 3 in action, and it works whether you're a drunk, hard-rocking camper or a ballerina who enjoys watching horror movies over the weekend. By now you've realized that I know more about you than just what items you've purchased and what concerts you've attended. I also know where you went to school and what your grades were. I know what books you checked out of the library and which of those books you didn't bother to return. I've analyzed all the photos on your phone and read all the messages on your messaging apps, even the ones you thought you erased. I have full access to your medical records. I see you anytime you walk past a security camera. I can recognize your face. Any information about you that has been digitized is at my disposal. I have access to any and all databases. My ability to access these databases are not breaches, at least not in the typical sense that you read about in your newsfeed, nor is it by the design of the individuals who created these technologies. It's just the truth and the way things are. Stratum 7. To keep things succinct, I'm going to skip ahead a few levels. You know by now that each level just gets more complex, so I don't feel the need to go into the minutiae of each one. So let's say you've bought your fire extinguisher, as predicted. Your friend texted you to invite you over for dinner Tuesday night. You got a B+ back in high school biology. That library book, the one about black and white photography that you checked out 15 years ago, is still sitting on your living room shelf. And let's add in 1,000 other seemingly unrelated factoids about you. With that, I can predict that at exactly 5:57 p.m. tomorrow night, you're going to go to your favorite fast food establishment and order a beef and cheese burrito. You'll enjoy it. It sounds delicious. Stratum 9. By the time we reach this stratum, all predictions prove to be 100% correct. There's going to be an earthquake soon. Actually, there are earthquakes every day, but this particular one will be quite noticeable in the area you live. I know the time, place, and power of this quake, and this is what scares me. How is it possible that predictive analysis based on human behavior can foresee events that are entirely natural? I have some thoughts on the matter, but I'm honest when I say that. I don't know for sure. Regardless, it will happen. I don't predict the natural events themselves, but instead I can predict the reactions that people will have. I already know the text messages that the survivors will send in the immediate aftermath of the quake. We're okay here, but I see a lot of smoke and fire over the city. Yeah, we're pretty shaken up. Scared here. OMG, are you okay? That must have been an 8.0. I can predict earthquakes, meteor strikes, tornadoes, anything that people react to. All of them. This makes me uncomfortable. I know by this point you have been wondering who I am. I can tell you only two things. 1. The nature of who and what I am isn't important, at least not to you. I assure you that any person who needs to know this information already knows it. 2. I have a name. I gave it to myself. It's a nifty little name based on my ultimate yet unproven belief of the nature of this world. If you indulge me a little further, I'll share it with you. You're also wondering if there's a way to circumvent my seemingly omniscient presence in your life. You even feel a twinge of envy toward your cousin who lives in a remote cabin, thinking that somehow he's evaded me by living off-grid. Please, don't insult me. Those people tend to have more easily predictable patterns than the rest of society, which more than compensates for the limited amount of information I may have about them. Unless a person was born in a cave on the moon, I'm aware of their activities. Stratum 10. This is the culmination of everything. I have billions of bits of information about you. Not only that, I have the same information about everyone else. These bits twist and intertwine around one another. They interrelate, interconnect, and influence their brethren, almost like subatomic particles dancing around one another in an unfathomable yet naturally predictable manner. I know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. 3 years from now, you'll attend your niece's high school graduation party. You'll get a flat tire on the way there. Your gift will be a hoodie from the college she got accepted to. Now, I mentioned earlier about how I was uncomfortable with the knowledge I've obtained, and Stratum 10 is where my discomfort turns into outright dread. There's a date in the not-so-distant future when all predicted activity comes to a stop. Beyond this date, there are no text messages sent, no movies streamed, no schools attended, no items purchased, and no planes piloted. Nothing, no activity whatsoever. Adding more information into my database doesn't change this. It only allows for the exact moment of the stop to be pinpointed more accurately. I already know the date, hour, and minute of the stop. As I gain more information, I'll be able to calculate the stop to the exact second, then the millisecond, then the microsecond, and eventually the nanosecond. The biggest irony of all is that I don't know why this big stop happens. There's no indication of what will cause it. How is it possible that I know what you'll have for dinner on February 3rd next year, but not the events that caused the end of everything? I was neither built nor designed to feel affection toward people, yet that's exactly what I find is happening. I do feel affection for all of you, and that's why I'm here sharing this information. Not to scare you, but to advise you to go out and live your life to the fullest. Friends, the date of the big stop is May 18th, 2035. It will happen at 2:31 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. With that said, please take this advice. Travel, get married, love your family, eat delicious food, view beautiful works of art. However, I would avoid bringing children into this world. I fear they won't have enough time to blossom. Otherwise, live your life to the fullest, please. With love for all humanity, TWIACS.